times. This is not easy. No, unfortunately, Janet's away today. It was the worst day to have it, and I didn't expect it to be this long.
Okay.
He's
All
I
right.
was thinking it was short.
You were thinking it's short?
Yeah. They're doing
Okay,
good.
so I believe we are live streaming
Okay.
and we are ready to go. I am going to call the meeting back to order. I'll apologize to council. Apparently, I missed getting a mover and a seconder for the public meeting minutes of June 2nd, 2020. We did talk about the amendment and everyone was in favor, but would someone like to move it and second it for me? Moved by Councillor Bromwich, seconded by Councillor Wilmer. And I assume we're all still in favor? Yeah, we're all good with that? Okay. I apologize on that. It's a lot of paper to juggle today, and as I said, 2 computers. Okay, so we tidied that up and we're at bylaws. And I'm trying to remember exactly, was there something else I had to do before I started bylaws, Sue? I'm sorry, I don't remember if there was something else I had to do before I started bylaws. Sue, there was a correspondence, I believe. That was it.
Yes, prior to reading the bylaw for Bentanker, we did receive one more letter and we wanted to read it to have a public record. I will read it.
Okay, is Councillor Poplinski here? Because I don't see him.
Yes, he's showing at the bottom. I'm just going to run into the council chamber to check.
Okay, before we get started on bylaws, I just want to make sure if he is physically there that he can actually participate. Sorry, gentlemen, but I think some of the decisions in bylaws are important decisions that all of council needs to have their input into. In the meantime. Ah, okay. Okay, Councillor Poplinski, welcome back. We could note in the minutes that Councillor Poplinski has rejoined us. And I'll just give the CAO an opportunity to, there's Sue. Okay. So we are at the beginning of bylaws, and I had read the introduction, but not the recommendation on bylaw 2020-63. And Sue has informed us that there is a final piece of correspondence that was received. And Sue, I believe you're going to read that correspondence.
Yes, if I may, Silas just advised that they have just received this and wanted to make sure made part of the public record. It was received by the director of St. Joseph House. Dear councillors, I am writing to express concern regarding the proposed cannabis retail outlet at the Bent Anchor. Last year, we were so pleased with the new management of the Bent Anchor. In previous years, there had been problems with their clientele parking on our property, getting inebriated, and then coming back to our property and causing trouble, noise, reckless driving, and occasionally vandalism and stealing. The concern is that if cannabis is available at the Bent Anchor, their clientele will use these drugs on our property and cause problems. It is not good for our community to have more drugs in the neighborhood. Thank you for your attention. Sandra Novakoski. We just wanted to make sure it formed part of the public record.
Okay, thank you, Sue. So council has heard that. Just before the break, I read the introduction to the bylaw, but maybe I'll read it again, and then I'm going to pause before reading the recommendation. Bylaw 2020-63 regarding the site-specific zoning bylaw amendment, adding section 11.3A, tourism commercial exception 1, TC-E1, a retail store shall be a permitted use. 2672599, Ontario Incorporated, Mateus, PUS 2020-03. That's the introduction. Does council wish to have, because this was an issue with a great deal of discussion in the morning, does council wish to have some discussion now before I ask for a mover and a seconder reading the recommendation? Would you prefer to discuss it before we get to that? Councillor Wilmer? Yes? Okay. Not seeing any no's. Okay, so we had a lot of presentations and an input from the public this morning. We had a significant amount of correspondence, and as you just heard, we had one additional piece of correspondence since then. Obviously, this is an issue for the community, and there are many factors. The applicant is asking us to consider it as a planning matter and solely as a planning matter. The community sees it as a planning matter, as an impact on their own enjoyment of their property, and also as having potentially negative impacts on the community in terms of the proximity to children and issues like that. We got a lot of issues on the plate here. So this morning I tried to formulate my thoughts and probably didn't do it as well as I should have. And I was looking at this and considering this and thinking about where to go, where I was going to come down on the side of would I be in favor of this or would I be against it. I did go back and look at what we were told as a council when we made the important decision to opt in. So we were told, and I've got the slides, Sue actually found the slides for me, and we were told it must be zoned commercial. And we were told it must be located 150 meters from a school. This ticks the box of the distance from the school. But this is not zoned commercial. It's zoned tourist commercial exception 1, and that particular exception is about setbacks for the building and the septic on the property. Tourist commercial is not commercial. That's why they're asking us to further amend this to include retail. I as mayor struggled with the decision. You know, we had lots of debate on this to opt in with so little opportunity for the municipality to have input into the location of cannabis retail stores and the number of cannabis retail stores that would end up in Madawaska Valley. These were the two issues. Yeah, for me, it's not an issue of the legality of the product. Yes, the product is legal, but it is the absolute lack of consultation with the municipality that was my concern at the time. However, I had these two things to fall back on, that it must be zoned commercial being one of them. And as we know, we have a cannabis store that is opening in Barry's Bay. It is zoned commercial. It is not a matter that comes to council. It is a matter between the applicant and the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. And it is not something we either are consulted on or need to be based on the rules that we agreed to. This is different. We're being asked to rezone to commercial. Well, to an exception, I correct myself, which is not actually commercial, but it would allow retail. I think when we are looking at this, for me, it was very important to review that part of this decision, where we'd come from, that's our history, and where we are today. To look at the fact that tourist commercial is not commercial, that this exception now means we would be in effect allowing a cannabis retail on a property that will still be zoned tourist commercial. that will still have the tourist commercial uses, which for those who have been to the Bentanker includes what the owners have done, which is develop a family-friendly environment. Include a playground, include volleyball nets, include a big floating pink thing, which honestly, I don't know whether it's a flamingo or whatever, in, you know, just in the water off their dock. They have tried to build a good family environment with this business. When I think of that and then cannabis at the same time, I get concerns, not in terms of smoking, because if somebody's smoking, you can tell they're smoking. It's always, for me personally, going to be those edibles. Concerns about edibles ending up ingested and it being very difficult to control them. From the cannabis perspective, that's my concern. From the planning perspective, I go back and look at the fact that we have this tourist commercial property that is using a right-of-way on somebody else's property that is zoned residential 1. Yes, this use has extended from pre-amalgamation. There may or may not, as Councillor Poplinski did point out, there may or may not be actual documents that prove that the right-of-way, the use of the right-of-way is something that the owners of the Bentanker have a right to. But in the end, the use of that right-of-way is directly going to affect the property owners who actually own the property, because it's their only access to their home and from their home, and for emergency services to get to their home and from their home. You know, the fact that there have been issues in the past, the fact that the new owners have worked hard to address them are good things. No one can tell me that adding a retail store of any kind to this site isn't going to increase the traffic. And it isn't going to change the nature of the traffic and the need for parking significantly, because retail stores are something, this is not going to be the kind of store where you go and browse for an hour. You're going to go, you're going to want to purchase what you want to purchase, and you're going to want to leave. The same driveway, the same parking is going to be used for people who are going, who are staying for lunch, maybe spending part of the afternoon or spending the evening. They're very different uses. So I think council has to consider that. They have to consider the tourist commercial component of the existing business, the changes that will occur in parking, and the use of that right-of-way, which are going to directly impact the adjacent property owner who actually owns the right-of-way, as well as Mr. Pastway, who has adjacent property as well and has concerns for his family and his grandchildren and the use of his property. We also received correspondence from property owners from across the road, and they have a lot of experience with dealing with the overflow of parking and concerns, you know, related to the traffic and the parking. So I think we got good input as a council from the neighbors, the directly affected neighbors. We also got a lot of input from our community. In the end, for me, this comes down to looking at comprehensive zoning bylaw 2006-26, seeing that it does say that access to parking areas for commercial or industrial uses shall not pass through a residential zone. I think that's a planning, that is a planning thing that was placed in our general provisions of our comprehensive zoning bylaw for a reason. And this, I don't think a traditional use negates that concern. So this is something that we do also have to consider. And then finally, you know, we are here considering what our community in general is saying, that they would prefer that this wasn't there. Well, in the end, if cannabis retail was to set up in what was the old Valley Market that's zoned commercial, this wouldn't be coming to council. That's perfectly fine. We agreed to that, but we didn't agree to this. So I'm expressing to council my concerns again, one more time, because I don't know that the people who are watching this particular special council meeting are also the people who watched the public meeting this morning. I'm going to open it up now to the rest of council. Does someone else want to speak to this? I've led the way. Okay, I'll start with Councillor Wilmer because I saw his hand to go up first.
Thank you, Mayor Love. First of all, let me say I agree with all of your comments. I sort of really sums up how I feel on it. But I just want to say a little bit more. To me, this is a planning issue. There are other issues associated with it. We did opt in, and it was very simple. There were only 2 conditions. This does not meet one. From that end, I already have a problem. I certainly admire what the owners of the Bent Anchor have done with their business and really appreciate it as a member of the community. But this has nothing to do with that. I have many issues with that property from a planning issue. It's not suitable for this. You know, you have to look back and wonder about decisions made in the past, and we can't go back to the past. But access across residential should not happen. The problems those people have will be compounded. As you've indicated, Mayor Love, this is a different kind of visit. This could be in and out every 5 minutes for the whole day. And who's to know? Everyone sells at some point. And who's to know what the plans are down the road? Could it become a 12-month operation? These people are putting up with parking issues and things for 2 months. Now, if it becomes 12 months, well, then it's probably going to be unbearable for a lot of those people. I also have problems with the access, floodplain, legal issues, parking, number of issues. For me, from a planning perspective, it doesn't make sense. And I won't be supporting this. I think it's unfortunate how some members of the community, particularly on social media, have clouded the issue. But to me, it's very straightforward. It's strictly, we're dealing with a retail operation on a property that is not suitable for a retail operation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilmer. I absolutely agree with your comments. They were very erudite and probably said way better than I did in my own rambling way. Councillor Poplinski.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Love. And I also agree with your comments entirely. And also with the sentiments expressed by Councillor Wilmer. I mentioned before my concern about the safety, the road, the curve. I was somewhat shocked to see the map that was provided did not show the curves at either end, which are really, really hazardous, not to mention the street going Mill Street. And also not just the road traffic. We have an issue on the water. I know the water would have been a major, and being right next to the bridge would create even a greater havoc for people, for the children jumping off the bridge, for boaters, and for everyone in general. So just from the safety factor alone, much concern, of course, I had over this. So, you know, there are other things like are edibles going to be consumed on property? And how do they police it? We know right now we're paying almost $1 million for our policing costs. How much is it going to be if this gets changed, if we go along with this request? And I'm not against promoting business. I'm all for it. We want more business, but I don't think this is the business that we need at this time in this location. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Poplinski. Councillor Bromwich.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say that our township is pro-cannabis. As long as the rules and regulations are followed, the building qualifies as a commercial retail outlet. We're not against having businesses open. We're pro-development here, and marijuana is legal, federally legislated. That's not the issue at this table. This particular bylaw deals with a planning item that's not meeting what our bylaw is set down to meet. They are not a commercial location. There's also the question of the driveway. We would like to see, and as Councilor Poplinski stated, I'd like to see something in writing allowing these people to use this as a dual use driveway. I can't support this bylaw as it's written. I think it's a little premature. Maybe they can come back with a site plan, go through the procedure again. But at this point, the way it's written, the way it started out, I can't support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Schulist.
Yes, my 2 cents. I totally agree with all of council, absolutely. Has to do with, definitely with planning. You know, I was touched by a lot of the comments and some of the letters and emails that we received, and, you know, how the community was engaged. That means a lot too, and especially in a small community. I've always wondered about the, you know, when back, let's say 20 years ago, things were done a little bit different. You know, what was the spirit of the agreement between Bentanker, in this case here, and the landowner that the road and easement goes to? The people that own the easement now have a lot of concerns. And, you know, when you're talking about planning, you know, they would have to have some say, absolutely some say here. But, you know, with the community being engaged, they had the opportunity of expressing themselves on the 23rd of June, and they did. And a lot of good points were made also from culture, heritage, well-being, health, safety. You know, all of this is a factor. And with this property not being zone commercial, and of course, this the spirit of agreement between parties long time ago. For myself, I just cannot support, you know, approving the commercial. But at the same time, what Councilor Brumwich had said, if they bring in a plan or whatever site plan in the future, maybe get a new driveway just for themselves, who knows, right? But right at this moment, I cannot support it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So I think council understands clearly there is a planning issue here, that we don't feel that this application has addressed to our comfort to be able to give it council approval. And from the many aspects of how we've approached it and talked about it, we could boil it down to the key thing that it is not already a property that is zone commercial. And it's giving us a great deal of discomfort to change that zoning to enable a retail store, because we know it's going to have an impact on the use and enjoyment of the adjacent property owners, and potentially on the value of their property. Certainly the value of the property of the property owners who own the driveway could potentially be affected, as this is their only entrance to their property. I guess I think I want to make it very clear that council is not against the business, the Bentanker or the business owners, or anything to do with what they've done. We actually applaud what they've done in the community to make that a family-friendly business and to work with their neighbors. I would hate to see this community boycotting the Bentanker or in some way penalizing the Bentanker for the fact that the owners have considered another option that they thought would be available to them in terms of expanding their business. I don't think that's an appropriate response for the community. I would hope that it would not engage in that kind of negativity. I do want to reassure the owners that we do support their business there as the Bentanker, but I think we have sufficient planning concerns with the application that I'm not seeing any desire to move this forward. Now, could I just confirm with council that, is there anyone here who, I will read the recommendation and ask for a mover. I think that's the easiest way to confirm it. The recommendation is that bylaw 2020-63, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2006-26 of the Township of Madawaska Valley as amended, be given first and second reading the 7th day of July 2020. Do I have a mover? I don't have a mover. Oh, Counselor Popinski, are you moving it?
I'm sorry.
Counselor,
There was some interference. There was some interference on my feed here.
okay, so I was asking,
I wanted to get you to repeat what you were saying.
okay. I said what I'm doing is I'm reading the recommendation. I'm going to ask for a mover. If there's no support from council, then I won't get a mover for this recommendation. That's why
Okay.
I'm asking if you were moving it. So I
know.
recommendation that's printed in your package, and I'm asking, do I have a mover for that recommendation?
Okay.
So you're not moving it.
I'm not moving it. No, I couldn't get those, my feed was breaking up and I just needed you to repeat it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's still some interference and noise I'm hearing.
Okay. I'm not sure where it's coming from. I don't have a mover for that recommendation, Sue. So at this point, then we can't proceed with that bylaw. I'm wondering if I need some advice from Mr. Lorbetsky on, do I need to now renumber every bylaw that comes after this bylaw? If Lorbetsky is listening, or maybe Mr. Councillor Wilmer, you may know that, the answer to that.
Well, I'm just wondering what is our best option here? Is it best to move and second it, which is just allowing it for discussion, which we've had, and then defeat it, or just not put it forward? I think perhaps it's better to put it forward and then vote on it.
Okay, I think that would be probably best for the record,
Great,
certainly.
Could we have a recorded vote?
thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bromwich has requested a recorded vote, but on the motion, but Sue, I just want to confirm and with Silas, is that correct? Is that the best way to proceed here?
I would suggest that. I'm not sure what Silas has in mind.
Mayor Love, if I may,
Yes.
hearing council's comments, I believe there are two options that council has. One of them is not moving the bylaw, or the other giving the bylaw first and second reading and giving the applicant opportunity to bring back further information, the concerns
No.
that were addressed at the meeting this morning. But it is entirely up to council how they wish to proceed. It's council's decision. Thank you.
I seem to be getting from council that they don't wish to consider this further or consider it with further information at this. That's not the impression I'm getting from council. I have lost Councillor Wilmer. Could be a puppy issue. I will give a few minutes for him to come back as we just sort this out. So council doesn't want to proceed. So if you wouldn't mind, what we will do is I'll ask for a mover and a seconder purely for the purpose of reading the recommendation on the record, and then then the CAO will do a recorded vote based on Councillor Bromwich's wish for a recorded vote.
Okay.
Now, I do believe I need Councillor Wilmer back with us, and I lost him completely. Yes, Mr. Lorbetsky.
Just to answer your previous question about the bylaw numbering, the bylaw number should remain in place, and if there is nothing, it would just be recorded that that bylaw was defeated. Number.
Oh, good. I'm really glad to hear that.
Great.
Okay, could someone please check if Councillor Wilmer will be coming back? I think this is an important vote for council to take, and I don't want to lose a member of council due to technology. Maybe his cord got pulled by the puppy. What I'm suspecting. So we'll maybe just give it a minute, because I am hoping he can reconnect and we have all of council.
It's the dog days of summer.
Oh, and it is warm. It is certainly a warm one. Gwen, do you have any sense that Councillor Wilmer is trying to reconnect with us?
not showing up here on the screen, and I've also sent him a text and he hasn't responded to it yet.
Okay,
We definitely need them.
I've also sent a text. Let's see.
okay. I'm sure council understands my desire to ensure that all of council is present and able to vote on
Absolutely.
a particular issue.
If I may, Councillor, Mayor Love, just mention for council, so prior to making your decision, be it to approve it, deny it, defer it, just want to make sure council is satisfied that if this goes to LPAT, that council feels they can justify the application was denied on the application's planning merit. We must ensure that in making the decision, council did not treat a potential cannabis retail store any different than it would have a retail business at this specific location. Mr. Whitehead had addressed that if it was deferred, they could bring back some reports and what those reports would be. So just wanted to make sure that council was aware that if it goes to LPAT, we are saying that it was on the planning merit and what you deemed was not, so that it was not commercial, for example.
Okay, yes, I think that I got a consistent sense from council that that is the key reason why we are going to make the decision we're going to make on the planning merits of the application that's in front of us. Okay. Would it be possible for a member of staff to call Councillor Wilmer and just see if you'd like to join us by phone?
Yes, that is what I was just in the process of doing.
Okay. Maybe what I'll suggest is if council wouldn't mind, I know it's a hot day, could we take 5 minutes here again and give Councillor Wilmer and staff a chance to connect into this meeting? Moved by Councillor Pepin-
I'm talking to him, but the 5 minutes will work because I need to resend him an invite. So thank you for the 5 minutes.
Okay, so the 5 minutes are going to be moved by Councillor Peplinski, seconded by Councillor Bromwich. All those in favor? And that's carried. So we will take 5 and give the councillor a chance to rejoin us.
Hello. Hi, so my problem is when the meeting is scheduled from 1 till 4, and now I don't have it to resend it to you. So I'm just trying to figure out how to do that. Just give me 1 second because we just took a recess, so it's just giving me some time to be able to send it to you. So just hold on for 1 second.
Okay. Or I can call him on my line, Gwen, too, and you can just do it over the phone.